Before we begin, gently like this video if money comparisons ever made you quietly question whether you are falling behind financially. Leave a quick comment with your age and savings range so others watching realize they are not alone in this journey. If you want clear money explanations without confusing jargon, subscribe now so you never miss future videos like this. Have you ever scrolled social media and wondered how everyone else looks wealthy while you celebrate 4 digits in savings? Maybe you lie awake at night mentally calculating whether retirement will ever actually feel possible for you. Or perhaps you check your investment app multiple times daily, hoping compound interest magically worked overnight miracles. Today I will show when most Americans actually hit major wealth milestones most people misunderstand completely. My name is Max, and I analyze real financial data to explain why wealth timelines rarely follow expectations. Most people imagine wealth building as predictable and linear, but reality is far messier and more human. We are taught graduate at 22, save steadily, hit 100,000 by 30, then coast forever. That story sounds comforting, but it does not match how wealth actually develops for most Americans. Real wealth building feels chaotic early, slow at first, then suddenly accelerates in surprising ways. Understanding realistic timelines matters because comparison without context creates unnecessary stress and bad decisions. Let us start with the milestone everyone obsesses over first, reaching $100,000 net worth. For many people, this milestone feels like climbing a mountain while wearing flip-flops uphill. Recent Federal Reserve and Vanguard data show the average age hitting 100,000 is early 30s. However, most people who reach it do so between their late 20s and late 30s. This wide range explains why comparing yourself to one lucky friend can feel incredibly discouraging. The first 100,000 is hardest because almost all progress comes directly from your effort. At this stage, compound interest barely helps, so discipline matters more than investment brilliance. Many people quit here, assuming wealth is impossible, when they are actually closest to breakthrough. After crossing 100,000, something subtle but powerful begins changing mathematically and psychologically. Most Americans reach 250,000 around ages 33 to 35. This jump happens faster because investments finally generate noticeable annual returns without extra effort. 200,000 growing at 8% adds 16,000 yearly, even if you save nothing new. Seeing money work this way often shifts motivation from fear toward genuine excitement about investing. The next major acceleration happens near $500,000 net worth. Only about 17% of American households ever reach this level, making it quietly exclusive. Most people who reach 500,000 do so between ages 35 and 40. At 8% growth, 500,000 produces 40,000 annually without additional contributions. That amount exceeds full-time income in many parts of America, earned while you sleep. This is often when people feel wealthy for the first time, even living ordinary lifestyles. The psychological security of knowing investments could replace income changes, career decisions dramatically. Becoming a millionaire remains the most famous milestone, symbolizing real financial stability for many families. Data shows the average American millionaire reaches that status around age 49. Some reach it earlier through high income and savings, while others take longer due to setbacks. About 12% of American households ever become millionaires, making it achievable but still uncommon. The surprising truth is that reaching the second million usually feels easier than reaching the first. From 1 million to 2 million often takes 7 to 10 years for consistent investors. At this level, investment growth alone can support a comfortable lifestyle without heavy withdrawals. Wealth acceleration explains why fortunes appear to grow suddenly after decades of invisible effort. Generational data shows wealth gaps within generations now exceed differences between generations themselves. Top-earning millennials are wealthier than previous generations at similar ages, despite economic headwinds. Meanwhile, median millennials hold significantly less wealth due to housing costs and debt burdens. Housing prices force young adults to choose between home ownership and aggressive wealth building. These choices heavily influence how quickly people reach financial milestones today. Remember, these ages are averages, not deadlines you must meet to succeed financially. Your path depends on income, discipline, life events, and when you start investing consistently. The real question is not whether you match the timeline, but whether you are playing. Start early, stay consistent, avoid lifestyle inflation, and let time quietly compound your efforts. Let us slow down and clearly explain why the first 100,000 feels painfully slow for most people. Early investing relies mostly on your income, discipline, and consistency rather than impressive market returns. When balances are small, even good investment years barely move the needle emotionally or financially. This creates frustration because effort feels disconnected from visible progress during early wealth building years. Many people mistakenly assume slow progress means they are doing something wrong financially. In reality, slow early growth is normal and experienced by nearly everyone who eventually becomes wealthy. Once your portfolio grows larger, the same percentage returns suddenly create much bigger dollar results. That mathematical shift is why progress feels exponential instead of steady once you cross early milestones. Think of compound interest like pushing a heavy flywheel that eventually spins on its own. Early pushes feel exhausting, but momentum builds quietly long before results become obvious. This flywheel effect explains why people appear to get rich suddenly after many invisible years. Most wealth stories ignore those boring years when discipline mattered far more than clever strategies. After 250,000, annual market growth often exceeds what many people save yearly. That moment changes behavior because progress feels rewarding instead of punishing for the first time. Investors begin focusing less on cutting expenses and more on increasing contributions strategically. At 500,000, investment returns often rival full-time salaries in many American cities. This does not mean people stop working, but work becomes a choice instead of survival necessity. Psychological pressure decreases because financial mistakes no longer threaten immediate long-term security. Confidence rises, patience improves, and emotional investing mistakes become less frequent. These behavioral changes further accelerate wealth because calm decisions usually outperform emotional reactions. This feedback loop separates those who eventually reach millionaire status from those who plateau earlier. Millionaire timelines vary widely depending on savings rates, career paths, and market conditions. High income helps, but consistency over decades matters more than brief periods of extreme earnings. Many millionaires reach that milestone slowly without stock-picking brilliance or risky speculation. They focused on boring index investing, steady contributions, and avoiding lifestyle inflation traps. Lifestyle inflation quietly delays wealth by increasing expenses faster than investment balances grow. Every raise that disappears into spending pushes milestones further into the future. Wealthy households often look surprisingly ordinary because money flows into investments, not appearances. This contrast explains why social media comparisons are unreliable indicators of true financial progress. People showing luxury purchases often have weaker balance sheets than disciplined, quieter investors. After 1 million, compounding accelerates because returns scale dramatically with larger principal amounts. A $1 million portfolio earning 8% grows 80,000 annually on average. That growth alone surpasses median household income in many regions across the United States. At this stage, saving becomes optional while investment growth does most of the heavy lifting. This explains why the second million usually arrives faster than the first for consistent investors. The third million often arrives even faster, reinforcing how nonlinear wealth accumulation truly is. These later accelerations are why wealth inequality widens significantly once people cross early thresholds. Small early differences in savings and discipline compound into massive gaps decades later. Generational data highlights this effect clearly within millennials and younger generations today. Top earners who invest early pull far ahead, while others struggle despite working equally hard. Housing costs amplify these differences by diverting income away from investments during critical years. Large down payments delay portfolio growth even when home values eventually appreciate. Rent increases also limit saving ability, slowing progress toward early wealth milestones. These structural challenges explain why timelines today differ from those experienced by older generations. Still, the underlying wealth principles remain unchanged despite shifting economic conditions. Consistent investing, controlled spending, and patience remain the most reliable wealth-building tools. Short-term market volatility matters far less than long-term participation and disciplined behavior. Missing early years hurts more than missing occasional good market years later. Starting late does not doom success, but it requires higher savings and stronger discipline. Understanding these realities helps replace anxiety with realistic expectations and calmer financial decisions. Let us address a common fear that starting late automatically means you have already failed financially for life. Many people begin serious investing in their 30s or 40s and still achieve meaningful financial independence over time. Higher savings rates later in life can partially compensate for fewer years of compound growth through discipline alone. However, delaying too long increases pressure and reduces flexibility when unexpected life events appear without warning at all. This is why understanding realistic timelines early provides emotional relief and supports better long-term planning decisions overall. And comparing yourself only to extreme success stories distorts expectations and encourages unnecessary financial risk-taking by most viewers. Most wealthy Americans did not experience dramatic breakthroughs but built progress steadily across decades through boring, consistent habits. They avoided chasing hot investments and focused instead on behaviors fully within their control, like saving, investing patiently. Behavior consistently matters more than intelligence, luck, or complex financial knowledge over long periods of time for investors. Simple habits repeated for decades outperform complex strategies executed inconsistently under emotional stress during market volatility cycles often. This explains why ordinary people quietly accumulate wealth, while louder personalities struggle publicly chasing attention trends validation online. Quiet consistency rarely goes viral but reliably builds net worth behind the scenes for patient long-term investors. Another misunderstood factor is income growth, which often accelerates after early career experimentation as skills compound professionally over time. As incomes rise, savings percentages matter more than absolute dollar amounts invested annually by most households nationwide today. A person saving 20% consistently often outpaces higher earners saving sporadically over long periods of market cycles. Wealth building rewards stability and patience more than dramatic financial decisions or lifestyle gambles during unpredictable economic periods. Market downturns frequently accelerate future wealth for disciplined investors, continuing regular contributions throughout volatile, uncertain emotional market environments. Buying assets during fearful periods often produces disproportionate long-term gains, later compared with buying during euphoric peaks. Those who panic sell during volatility usually delay wealth milestones by several additional years due to missed recoveries. Emotional reactions often cost more money than any single poor investment choice ever could over entire investing lifetimes. Understanding this helps investors detach emotionally from short-term market noise and focus instead on long-term fundamentals. Wealth timelines appear smooth in hindsight but feel chaotic while actually living through them during real-world uncertainty. Temporary setbacks like job loss or health issues often interrupt progress without permanently derailing outcomes for disciplined savers. Recovery speed matters more than avoiding every possible financial mistake throughout life, because resilience compounds alongside financial capital. People who recover quickly often surpass cautious individuals who avoided risks entirely but missed opportunities for meaningful growth. This balance between caution and participation largely defines long-term wealth outcomes across different economic cycles and generations. Let us revisit the key milestones with this broader perspective clearly in mind before drawing conclusions about progress. 100,000 marks discipline, not wealth, proving habits strong enough for compounding to work effectively over time. 250,000 signals momentum, where growth begins assisting personal effort meaningfully through reinvested returns and confidence. 500,000 represents security reducing fear and expanding career and lifestyle options during uncertain economic and employment periods. 1 million signifies independence where work becomes optional rather than financially mandatory for many middle-class American households. Each milestone reflects behavioral shifts as much as numerical progress shown on statements over time for consistent investors. Skipping any stage weakens the foundation supporting later acceleration phases, making progress more fragile during stress or volatility. This is why chasing shortcuts often produces fragile wealth that collapses under pressure when markets shift unexpectedly downward. Sustainable wealth often feels boring because it relies on patience rather than excitement, hype adrenaline, or constant action. Ironically, boredom usually signals a strategy working exactly as intended over time, without emotional stress or impulsive changes. Financial anxiety decreases when expectations align with realistic timelines instead of fantasies promoted by social media highlight reels. Knowing averages prevents unnecessary panic when progress temporarily feels slower than imagined during early investing or savings years. It also prevents overconfidence when progress feels temporarily faster than expected, which often leads to risky decisions later. Both extremes commonly trigger poor financial decisions that delay long-term outcomes for otherwise capable, disciplined, long-term investors. Wealth building is less about racing others and more about avoiding self-sabotage through consistent, calm, rational behavior. Your future financial outcome depends largely on staying invested long enough for compounding to work relentlessly in background. Time rewards persistence far more generously than intelligence or bold predictions made during uncertain market cycles by commentators. Every year invested compounds not only money but also confidence and emotional stability, which supports better long-term decisions. That stability improves choices across careers, relationships, and major life transitions like relocation, parenthood, entrepreneurship, or caregiving responsibilities. Financial progress often enhances life satisfaction long before reaching millionaire status by reducing stress, increasing flexibility and options. These benefits explain why early discipline delivers rewards beyond visible account balances, including peace of mind and confidence. Wealth is ultimately a byproduct of consistency, patience, and long-term participation, rather than sudden brilliance or luck. The timeline matters less than committing fully to the process itself, despite distractions, doubts, setbacks, and noise everywhere. Once committed, progress becomes inevitable even if the pace feels frustrating initially during early, slow, seemingly unrewarding stages. Let us now connect these wealth timelines back to everyday decisions people make without realizing long-term consequences. Small daily spending choices often feel harmless, but compound, just like investments over many years quietly. A slightly larger apartment, nicer car, or frequent dining out can delay milestones more than people expect. These choices rarely feel dramatic, yet collectively determine how quickly wealth compounds behind the scenes. The difference between investing early and delaying 5 years can equal hundreds of thousands later. Time is the one variable money cannot replace, regardless of income level or investment skill. This reality explains why starting early matters even with modest contributions and average market returns. Early investors benefit from compounding twice through money growth and habit reinforcement over time. Habits formed early reduce friction later when balances grow large and decisions feel more impactful. By contrast, late starters often battle both math and behavior simultaneously under greater emotional pressure. That pressure can lead to chasing returns instead of following patient, disciplined, long-term strategies. Chasing returns usually increases volatility without improving long-term outcomes for most individual investors. Consistency outperforms intensity when wealth building spans multiple decades and unpredictable economic cycles. This principle holds regardless of generation technology investment platforms or economic environment changes. Tools evolve, but human psychology around fear, greed, and comparison remains remarkably constant. Understanding your own psychology often matters more than selecting the perfect investment allocation. Investors who stay calm during downturns typically reach milestones earlier than emotional peers. Calm behavior allows compounding to operate uninterrupted across market cycles, expansions, recessions, and recoveries. Every uninterrupted year invested increases the probability of long-term financial independence significantly. Interruptions from panic selling reset progress and lengthen timelines far more than most people realize. This is why patience is repeatedly emphasized by experienced investors across generations and economic eras. Patience feels boring short-term but rewarding when viewed across 30 or 40 investing years. Wealth rarely arrives as excitement, but rather as quiet stability and expanding personal freedom. That freedom often shows up as better sleep, reduced anxiety, and confidence making life choices calmly. Financial stability supports healthier relationships because money stress no longer dominates daily conversations. These non-financial benefits motivate disciplined investors more than numbers on statements alone. Wealth milestones serve as markers of progress, but should not define personal worth or happiness. People hitting milestones later often enjoy similar satisfaction once security replaces chronic uncertainty. There is no universal correct timeline because lives, careers, families, and opportunities vary widely. Comparing timelines without context ignores sacrifices, responsibilities, and starting points unique to each person. The healthiest comparison is against your own past habits and financial decisions over time. Progress measured personally reduces envy and increases motivation to continue disciplined behavior. This mindset supports sustainable wealth building rather than burnout driven by constant comparison. Sustainable progress often looks unimpressive until compounding reaches its visible acceleration phase. When acceleration appears, outsiders assume luck, while insiders recognize decades of preparation quietly working. That misunderstanding fuels myths about overnight success across finance careers and investing stories. Reality rewards preparation, patience, and consistency far more reliably than bold, dramatic actions. Most millionaires attribute success to staying invested rather than making brilliant individual decisions. Avoiding major mistakes often matters more than finding extraordinary opportunities throughout investing lifetimes. Major mistakes usually stem from emotional reactions rather than lack of information or intelligence. Education helps, but emotional discipline determines whether knowledge translates into long-term results. This is why financial education should emphasize behavior management alongside numbers and concepts. Understanding timelines helps reduce fear, which improves behavior during inevitable market volatility periods. Reduced fear supports better decisions when headlines predict disaster or promise unrealistic riches. Calm investors continue contributions regardless of noise, trusting compounding to function over time. Trusting the process requires patience, especially during early slow years before visible progress appears. Those who endure that phase often reach milestones faster than they initially believed possible. The hardest part is remaining consistent when results feel invisible and effort feels unrewarded. That phase separates eventual wealth builders from those who abandon the process prematurely. If you stay invested long enough, compounding eventually makes progress undeniable and deeply rewarding.